Oscar Yildiz is a school teacher, a councillor for Moreland, and now a candidate for the New Victorians Party. As a lot of Victorians have become disillusioned and disgruntled with the state of politics in Victoria and Australia, Oscar is committed to making Victoria a better place and committed to making politics and politicians accountable. Because what we've witnessed over the past 2 years during COVID has been corruption in politics, and it's become rampant, and accountability has become non-existent. Now, recently, the City of Moreland chose to undertake a review of its name because of links to a 19th century Jamaican slave estate. Well, on Monday night, councillors voted 6-3 in favour of the name change, of which Oscar Yildiz voted against the change. Because according to Oscar, the true cost of changing that name will run into the millions of dollars, not the $500,000 that the council have said it will cost. Good morning, Oscar, and what's going on in the City of Moreland?
Michael, it's certainly been an interesting couple of weeks, to be honest, and it's a bit surprising to see that the councillors moved this motion so quickly. It was a bit of a surprise to all of us. We found out about it on the Sunday night, and the mayor, the newly elected mayor, who was only elected a few days before, basically said to us, this is what we're thinking of doing. And we were like, where did this come from? Because in the past 14 years, I've been on this council and gone through a number of campaigns. I've never seen any candidate put in their candidate statement that they're considering changing the name of Moreland. So it was a bit of a shock to us. And the last few weeks has been quite tense, and it's been quite, we've been questioning each other, and I think the general vibe, I don't care what anyone says, but the general vibe around the place at the moment is very fractured. We're not a group that's working together. There's no unity. There's a lot of councils that are disenfranchised with the way that the elite team is, or the group that's basically got control, are taking over, and it's a whole lot of former councillors of Green background. There's a couple of Labor people behind the scenes, and they're all pushing the buttons, and they're doing a really good job at it.
Now, I know Moreland, I know it well. It's a bit of an old stomping ground of mine. It's an incredibly diverse and inclusive and welcoming committee. Like, I don't think you could get a more contemporary expression of that wonderful melting pot that we love to call Australia. Is this a divisive issue? Is it going to cause more division than what it's worth?
I think it will, Michael, because like you said, there is racism. Let's not beat around the bush. But our community in particular, one community proudly diverse, is our motto. I was born and raised in Moreland. Dad chose Moreland his home once he left Turkey. And he came here in 1968, and he's called Moreland home since then. I mean, we lived in South Australia in Murray Bridge for about 8 years, but we always came back, and we didn't go back to any other municipality except Moreland. We're one of the most diverse communities in Australia, where we have over 190 different nationalities all living together, and we don't have issues with racism. You might get the odd here and there, but there's nothing that I honestly can remember in the last 14 years or the last, 45 years of my life where there's been that we've had that issue. We haven't. We've lived harmoniously together, and you hear these motherhood statements and you hear these cliches, but honestly, Moreland is a very, very good unified sort of city, and I'm proud that when I go out into the community, I don't feel like I'm being patronised, or I'm feeling any racism towards me. Look, growing up as a kid, you had the odd issues going on at primary or secondary school, but it was very rare. We're all Australian, and I understand where some of the Greens councils are coming from, and I can empathise with some of their thoughts. But this is not about, for me, it's not about forgetting our First Nations people, because, and I'll say this again, I'll challenge any one of those greenie, sipping latte people to challenge me on what they've done for the Indigenous community. 8 years in Murray Bridge, a week in Hermannsburg in the middle of nowhere in Northern Territory, seeing what some of those Aboriginal kids were going through. I sent thousands and thousands of dollars worth of clothing shoes to that community through a good friend of mine at Pascoe Vale Sports Store, who unfortunately lost his business because of COVID, and Jetstar were good enough to fund the transport costs in doing that. But you know, I think they've blown it out of proportion. And Michael, it's come so quickly that we didn't actually get a chance to ask some of our friends and family and our residents of Moreland. And the first person I called was actually an Aboriginal elder who's a good friend of mine. And he said, this is virtue signalling. This is the Greens using us as a community, as people, to launch some of their own, ideas and policies and things that or ideologies that we actually don't even agree with. And you can't just have one little tiny group made up of 5 people come to us and go, we want to change the name. Okay, so what happens if another group comes to us? We've now set the precedent and says, you know what? I don't like the name Brunswick. So do we change that as well? Oh, I don't like the name Pascoe Vale. Oh, Hatfield's offensive to me. Or Oak Park. I mean, seriously? Like, when's this going to stop? Do we move forward or do we keep going back? We've apologised. We acknowledged there was slavery, but changing every single street sign in Moreland? Yeah, I think it's a bit far-fetched.
Now, Oscar, they've estimated the cost at $500,000 over the next 2 years to change the major signs, but then they've said, well, over the next 10 years, within budgetary constraints, we'll change all of the signs eventually. Is the City of Moreland travelling that well as far as amenities go and literacy programs for the actual Indigenous people that they claim to do, the sporting clubs, the inclusion programs, the women's sports programs, everything like that, the tangible real world needs, have they just been met that well that this is a matter of, well, what else can we get to?
Well, this is why I love the Informer, because it's informative, as in you've done your homework. And a lot of people have said, it's only $500,000, what's the problem? It's actually not $500,000. $500,000 is going to be spent over 2 years. And I guarantee you, Michael, a lot of that money will be sucked up and absorbed with consultants. It'll be sucked up and absorbed with so-called consultation sessions being held. You know, and I know how councils work and how local government works in particular. And the attitude of a lot of the councillors and even some of the staff is that most of our staff are fantastic, but it's not my money. Until you start spending your own money, until some of these councils actually realise that we're like a board. We're directors of a board. We need to be responsible. We need to be accountable. I mean, this is ratepayers' money we're spending. And we should have had a referendum. Every single ratepayer of Moreland should have been sent a letter saying, do you want the name change? Not a little group of councillors saying, yeah, let's change the name. Who's paying for it? The socialists, the Greens, just when you think they can't come up with a better idea to waste ratepayers' money, they come up with a grand scheme of changing the entire municipality's name. When we were elected, you voted in the municipality that you live in. When I vote for, prior to getting involved in council, I wanted my councillor to focus on key issues because if I wanted someone to fight Hiroshima, it's the federal government that needs to do that. Rates, roads, and rubbish. Yeah, we do a whole lot of other things too, but $500,000 of ratepayer money, and over 10 years, this is going to be millions because that $500,000 will go so quickly. Because of all the red tape, bureaucracy, and everything else that comes with all the costs of engaging consultants and everything else. I think it's a huge waste of money. And I've said it time and time again, if we donated $500,000 to our Indigenous community, that's going to be a lot more effective than changing the name. Who cares? Like the average Moreland resident out there, when I speak to them, they go, I couldn't care what it's named, but to spend all that money, now I care. And that's what's happened over the last 2 years with COVID, even when people have realised that I don't want to get involved in politics. Who cares about politics? Well, let me say, politics is getting involved with you. So people need to actually think about the power of this thing. When they go and vote, you get what you vote for. Some of the councillors say to me, well, it's not just rates, roads and rubbish. Well, if it's not rates, roads and rubbish, go and run for state parliament or go and run for federal parliament and see if you can change the world there, but leave the Moreland community alone. And just before I got on to speak to you, a sports store rang me up and said, sorry, a sports club rang me up and said, mate, what are we going to do about these lights? How are we going to get lights? Yesterday I had a phone call from a resident saying the park that's next door to us, we saw a brown snake. The grass is so high, there was a brown snake, and we had to get a snake catcher to come in and try and find this snake. He wasn't able to find the snake. We've got grass next door to a home that hasn't been cut because our staff are inundated. They're running around trying to sort out what happened with the storms a month ago. $500,000 would have got us probably 8 staff that could have done that.
And instead we've got some changed names on signs and just, as you say, virtue signalling. Now, the Victorians Party, Oscar, how is that travelling and what can we expect?
Look, we're doing really well. Look, the people that are behind the scenes, the co-founders of the party, Bill Lang, Ingrid Maynard, Paul DiMartino and myself, and we've got a range of other people behind the scenes helping us out. We're hoping to be that next party. We're hoping that when people go to the polling booths next year, that they do put us number one. They do consider some of our key policies that we stand for. But we want to bring back honesty, integrity, freedom and performance back into politics in Victoria, and we're doing well. The thing is, Michael, people are disenfranchised with the major parties. There's a lot of apathy out there. They actually don't care anymore. They've had enough. They're sick to death of what the major parties have been doing. It's all about nepotism to me. I know how the parties work. It's about the numbers. And we're trying to be that party that's ethical, that's honest. And look, let me say this: if a member of parliament right now didn't go to the office for 7 months, 8 months, there's no one that is checking up to see what they're doing. There's no accountability. I mean, I know an MP who has spent the last few years building properties, and he's rarely gone into the office. The office is closed. So this person doesn't even live in the area that they're supposed to be representing. And they just get parachuted into wherever the party believes that they should go to. We want local people representing the locals. And we're a people's party. We're not individuals. There's no ego. There's no nepotism. There's no parachuting. This is genuinely about finding good candidates, good local candidates that understand the challenges and issues of their local community to run for us. So already we've had, a couple of thousand people express their interest in joining. We've had our memberships increasing every single day. I just got an email this morning by one of our staff saying that, volunteers saying that, we had a couple of hundred more members join. And we're encouraging people, go to vicparty.com and join. It's free to join. The more members, the more we're able to find the issues or identify the issues that our members have, and then be able to collate them and then hopefully form our policies around the issues that are affecting people. But most of the issues are around cost of living, most of the issues are around COVID, and most of the issues seem to be already around the distrust that people have with the major parties. So, yeah, we're doing well. We're a brand new party, but I think we've got the right people on board to hopefully make a difference and leave a legacy for our future generations.
Great. Well, there you have it. Oscar Yildiz, candidate for the Victorians Party, councillor for the City of Moreland, and common sense spoken there. Thank you for your time, Oscar.
Thanks, Michael, and thank you to the Informer.